Hello. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, that's great. Let's have a look of the assignment. Like, how's your assignment? I just want to know, like, what is the progression of it? Struggling? Like, did you finish the first part? Because last week I have demonstrated how to do the login and the multiple user, right? So I assume you have already done this part and trying to do this part. Like, have anyone like complete this part already? Like, anyone finish this part? These 4 functions. Okay, don't worry. Just want to have a look at first. Let me open the outline for that. Where is it? It's this one. So we have lots of information inside the specification, but it's pretty long. I will not go through it. Just go to the key points for that. So we will talk about the what is that? We will talk about the design at first, as we plan. So we will talk about how to design and like what will be the client and server looks like and what should they do to do the communication. And I will also talk about the data structure because this part is quite important as we need to design a protocol. So we have to have a kind of structure to communicate with each other, right? So it could be a plain text and it could be a JSON, it could be a dictionary, depends on you. And I will also have some like basic instruction on the Python operations, like how to create and delete modify the text file. So let's get started. So to have a look of the application design, it's better to have a look of the first page. And maybe here. This part, just go through this paragraph. Then you will know we need to design a server that listens on a specific port number. And we will have a client that will be able to receive a command line argument. So let me open a drawer. Thank you. So I will draw something here. Left hand side server, right hand side the client 1, and we may have several clients, right? Let's assume we have 2 clients at this time. So the server will be able to communicate with the client. Yeah. Like this. And the client can also communicate with the server in the same way. So this is the TCP connection, right? So it's pretty easy, just establish the TCP connection and they can send the file, right? They can send I think it's a text, right? So you can send a plain text. But how could you send another kind of file? Because usually if in the login scenario, let me copy this part and move here. If this is a login scenario, it will be pretty easy. Let's just draw something here. So the first thing to do is to log in, username, and password, right? It's something like this. If you want to log in with the client one, the first message should be from the client to server, and the second one could be from the server side to the client side, and it will be login result success, something like this, right? So this is the login. But have you ever considered like what will be the format for that? Like message format. In here, we can simply send a plain text, right? For example, it could be like login, and you can use comma or the space, whatever you like admin and password 123 is the password. And as the response, if this one is success, the server side can reply login success like this. Depends on you, right? Like let's say we use comma to send message, so they can just simply send this message to represent they are trying to log in, and what is the result of login. But in this way, it would be very hard to extend. For example, next time you want to issue another command, let me find one. For example, this one, edg file id data amount. So you are trying to do the edg command. edg file id, let's say one data amount by like this, and it will be like edg result, edg access, and with some data, right? With some other information. Yeah, this kind of stuff is okay, but as long as you keep programming, then you find this kind of format is a bit confusing by using it, because sometimes we may use the comma in our data, so it will be a little bit hard to split it. So the better way to design the way they communicate it is to have, like, you can use a dictionary in here or use the JSON here. So instead of sending the plain text, how about just sending a dictionary like this? Like you can set action is logging, and then the data inside could be, you can use a list or tuple. You can also use another dictionary inside. Let's say username is admin, and the password is password 123. How about this one? Instead of sending a plain text, I think it's a better way to send a dictionary like this. Like this. And as the response, you can see this is the response, and you can say result. We'll change this one. Result. Something like this. So with the dictionary in your communication, it will be easier that the server and communicate with the client, and the client can easily understand what will be the result just by checking the value inside the result, right? But this is just an example. You can use the different format. For example, in here, you don't need to put the data here. You can just simply put the username outside. Just delete this part. Just delete. Yeah, something like this. It's also okay. It depends on you. So just make a note when you decide what you want to do with this kind of communication protocol. So you may have some problem like, how can I send the dictionary from the server to the client and from the client to the server, right? Then you may need to have a check of this one, like JSON and import JSON. And the JSON stuff can help us to transform the str to the string, and the str to the JSON format is like a dictionary, and from dictionary to a str. So let me show you. Let me open my this. Let me just open an example for that. So plain text is not recommended. Yes, I reckon plain text is not a good idea. But yeah, if you really want to use the plain text, you can do it, and you will not lose any marks for that, because as long as you can complete the function, that should be fine. But I recommend to use JSON because it's easier to manage and less bug. But it depends on you. If you have already done a lot of part of the assignment by using the plain text, you can keep using it. So we are still sending the plain text, but the plain text is like this, right? It's like the dictionary, so they can easily understand them. And now I'm showing how to do it with the JSON library. Just give me a sec. Let me open my Python. Okay, so share my console. So we have import. Yeah, just import JSON. And let's say we have a dictionary like the login in this side. We save it as the request. Okay, so let's print the request. It's a dictionary, right? So how can we send it? Because we can only send a string. Let's say we can only send this kind of information. Login, username, and password, right? We use the encode to send it, to transform this string into the bytes format and then send it. So how can we transform the dictionary into bytes format and send it? So if you are trying to use this one like encode, it will not going to work because it doesn't have the function that we can use to transform to bytes. So we need to transform to the string at first. So we can use the JSON. and JSON dot. You can see this is dumps or loads that we can try. And you can use the dumps to transform this dictionary into a string. So you can save it into a text file, or you can just simply send it. So let me request. Then this one is a string. You can see this is a string. So it will be very easy to send it, right? So request dump dot encode will be the stuff, right? So we just send it like this. This is a byte, so we can use the socket to send it. And in the other side, when we receive it, it will be like this. Receive message from client. So when you use the socket to receive the message, it will be something like this. So how can we recover this one into the dictionary? It will be very easy. It's the same thing. Same thing. We just need to decode it like we did with the string, right? So it will be back to the string. And we can use the JSON.loads and to load it. So you will become a dictionary. So you can use this method to unpack message. So you have a dictionary in the server side right now. So in the server side, you can simply use the get. You can get the username. What is the username? And you can get what is the action. So what does the client want to do is the login, right? So we use the JSON library to do this kind of transform. It will be easier to pack and unpack your message. So this is the first thing I want to talk about. But yeah, if you feel like the plain text is not enough, that's fine. Don't worry too much. But if you haven't done too much yet, I recommend you to try this one, as it will be easier at the end of it, because you have lots of action, right? So you may need to use this kind of format to make sure you have a few bugs. You have no bugs. Okay, so what's the next? Let me have a check. Yeah. Okay, so we come back to the server design. Come back to here. Just talk about the TCP connection here. So the whole structure is like this. The TCP, the server can use this different TCP connection with the server. And the client will also be able to communicate with each other by using sorry. Yeah, by using the UDP one. UDP. So UDP. So how can we design this kind of structure? Let's talk about the server side at first. So in the server side, we already got the code for that. I think it's in the assignment code server side, right? So in this part, you don't need to worry too much at the beginning. Just have a look of the end of it. This is the main thread of the server. So as you can see, we define lots of function at the beginning and define a class. Then we enter a while true, and we will keep listening for the new connection. And if we do have a new connection, then we start a thread like this. So in here, you can see the main thread of the server is pretty easy. Just have one main thread. We don't have other stuff, right? Just a main thread. Just keep listening. So main, keep listening. For new clients. So that's the only thing the server needs to do. So I don't think we need to do a lot of modification for this part as we have already done it. So, but how about the client? The main thread of the client could be like ask user to input the command, right? And we may have a subthread for that, like subthread. What could be the possible subthread? Like print response from client. So yeah, this could be the subthread, but it depends. You can put this subthread into the main thread. It's totally okay. But if you put it as a subthread, the advantage of this is you don't need to wait until you input the command, right? Because sometimes we may have some information from other clients or other server that we want to show it immediately. But if you didn't input anything, then our program will stuck over there and it cannot print anything else. So if you find you have this problem, you'd better to create a subthread. So this one is optional. The subthread can only improve the performance of it, but it's not compulsory. And the second one is the subthread that can listening for the UDP connection. So why should we have this subthread? Because the client one is listening for the UDP connection from outside, let's say from client two. So you have to always listening for that. So the code will be quite similar as we did in the server. Let me just copy and paste. Should be like this. Yeah. So the subthread 2 is actually, I would say, 90% looks like the same like this. So we will accept. Actually, it's not accept because UDP, we don't need to accept. We just keep listening, right? We just use the UDP connection to receive the information from outside. But you can still detect any connection from outside by using this one as well. Yeah, and just run the thread. Because for each client, we run a separate thread for that. So I would say the subthread 2 is quite similar to this kind of code. So you need to create a small server in here. It's like UDP. So this part is the UDP server. So that's the structure, I think, in my mind, if you have any idea. But if you are not a CSE student, don't worry too much about the UDP part. We don't need to have the subthread. But if you are a CSE student, you may need to learn how to create a subthread for the client. The code in the client side could be quite similar. The client side code. The main thread is like while true message equal to input, right? And this is the main thread. So the main thread is like this. The main thread is the while true message equal to input, something like that. Then we send it, right? And in the subthread 2 is to ask listening for the new UDP connection from another client. So that's the structure, I think. And this one is also the same. So now we know the structure for both server side and the client side. So the server side, we don't need to modify a lot, just keep it like that. And for the client side, we may need to do some modification, as you can see here. We will have 2 while true loop, right? So we need to run the subthread before we run the main thread. Otherwise, it will stuck in the while true loop. So, but don't worry too much at the beginning of it if you haven't complete the first 4 functions. Today we will focus on that 4 function, yeah. But just keep in mind, we may need to create some subthread to do the UDP function. But today we will focus on this part to finish the first 4 functions. Come back to here. We have explained the design protocol and the data structure. We come to here, how to create and delete and modify a text file. So it's better to run in the VLAB. So yeah, let me just run it. Okay, let me open an example for that. How to do the plain text manipulation. This one is the Python console. And sometimes we want to create something like import OS. Let me see. Yeah, the OS. What do we have in this one? Yes, it's just with open stuff. For example, you have a file inside the folder. Let's say the file name is example.txt. So actually, I don't have this file in the folder right now. So what should I do if I want to create it and write something to it? I need to add the parameters, write permission, right? And the plus means If we don't have this file, we create it. So that's the permission part. So write, W means write, and W plus means I want to create it if we don't have it. So as file, so the file can write something. We can write something here. And we can also create a for loop for I in range 10. Let's write some numbers. Let's write these numbers. So we put it as a string because we can only write the string. And we will change the line, this symbol. So we change the line. And then, yeah, that's it. Let's see how it goes. We run this one. So how can we open the file? You can simply go to the folder and then find this file and open it. We can so use the Python. You can see I can have a double check. We have an example txt in the current folder. So you can see before we run this command, we don't have the file. So now we have it. We have the example.txt in here. So how can we read it? You can simply run the command cat if you are using Linux. But in here, I just use Python to read it. So it's the same, but we've opened this one. This time we change the parameters in here. We only need to read it, right? Only read it. So the content will equal to file read. So you can see the content is like this. So print content is, so that's the content inside the text file. If I want to split it, how can I split it? If you remember, I use this symbol to end the line. So I can print content.split with this symbol. So you can see I split them line by line. Or you can simply use this one, read lines. This function is the same. So the content will be split by line, line by line. But you may need to remove the symbol at the end of it. Is that okay? So that's how we create and delete. And how about modify? For example, this time, we already have a file like this. So how about every time I just want to add something at the end of it? So if I run it like this, if I do this one again, it will be covered, right? So this time I just put it to 10 to 20. So I am expecting I have 0 to 20 right now if after running this line, right? Because it's from 10 to 20. Actually 21. So I am expecting to have 10 to 20, 0 to 20, because I want to add it at the end of this file. So let's see what we will have right now. So we open this one and we read it again and see what's the outcome. You can see the old file has been like covered, replaced. So where is my 0 to 9? It's have been covered, right? So in here, I want to, so what should we do to get it back? We need to, we can use this one, A plus. Instead of using W plus, we use A plus, or you can use A if you think you already had the file in the folder. So this time we are trying to do 21 to 30, 31. So I want to add something at the end of it, right? Instead of replace the file. So let's run it and let's print it. you can see we add something at the end of it by using the parameter a plus. So that's the open function in Python. It's just it's very basic, but I think this one could be useful for your assignment. So that's how we create and delete and modify. And yeah, I have already explained how to send and receive JSON objects. So just using the JSON.dumps or JSON.loads, JSON.loads, these two. We can come to the this kind of stuff, I guess. So do you have any idea or any question about this? Because I reckon this part is very easy. So basically just asking you to create a text file, right? When you receive a command. So like, does anyone have any idea, like, or any question regarding to this one, to EDG command? So we can have a look. Or which part do you think is the hardest one, for this function? Huh? Yeah, so I guess we don't have any question for this one. So this one is pretty easy. When the client issues the command edg, and it will generate a corresponding file. So let's say we can define a function here in the server side. So server side define edg, the function file ID and data amount. So when we call this function, we just generate a file called this one. So we open the file. This is the file name. So the file ID is this integers, right? So we just replace this one as the file ID. And yeah, and our permission is W plus. If we don't have it, we just create it, right? Then we are writing it and replacing it. We are not adding at the end. So as the, how should I call this? It's the file, huh? And the file dot write data amounts means we need to write this much number. So we can use the random library. Random import random and file write. So we need to have this much number of for n in data amount. The file write, we keep writing it, just n integers, some integers. So random dot rand distinct 1 to 10, and yep, or 1 to 100, depends, whatever. And we make it as a string, so it's like a string with the change line and symbol. So that's the function for EDG in the server side. So in the server side, when you call it, so assume we have received the file ID and data amount in the server side, we can just simply call this function. Let's try one. The EDG one, and data amount is 50. Too much, maybe 15. So it will generate a file called this one, right? So we just need to read it. Let me open the file. So we just copy it. The file name. Oh, sorry, made a mistake here. File name should be here. Okay, we read this file, and then we print the content. As you can see, we randomly put some integers. Should be 15 integers in here. So that's how the EDG function works. So we just simply define this function and it works. And in here, maybe at the end, you need to return something, like define with this one and then return a success or something at the end of it. Return true or false or something like that. Return true, or you can define if the is instance data, if the data amount is not a integers, so it's not an integers, then we return false or return an error message, something like that. Like can return error. Okay, something like that. So if the data amount is not an integers, then we return error. Or you can also specify this one is an integers when you define the function. And you can define the file ID is also an integers, and we return the string here, just to make it just make more sense, I guess. It depends on you. So let's say we do it like this. So when we try to input an invalid data amount, let's say ASD, yeah, this one is definitely invalid because it's not integers, right? And the file ID is 1. So what will happen? So it will raise an error because I define we need to have an integers here, right? So if I didn't, I just like this, he will return the error, I guess. Oh, he didn't. I think there's nothing wrong with it, I guess. If this is instance, then return error. We didn't enter this one. So still something wrong with it. Oh yeah, sorry, we just made a small mistake with this part. It's very small. It's if not, right? Because this one, if this one is not integer, then we return error. Otherwise, we can proceed and return okay. A small mistake, sorry. So this one, you can see return error. Yep, and another one like we can replace a real number and we return okay, and it will write the file. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here, right? So the edg command, we should do it in the client side, is it? I thought we are doing it in the server side. Let me just have a quick look of it. Yeah, it seems it's a client side. It's saying the edge device, right? I thought we need to save it in the server side, but it's more easier. So we don't even need to send it. In the client side, we just simply use that function and send it. Yeah, is it correct? So it's pretty easy then. We don't even need to send to the server side. We just define a function in the client side as this. So if it's error, then we can return some error message. If it's okay, then we return some successful message, or you can simply return true or false. And yeah, then we come to here, upload edge data. Reckon this one is sent to the server side via the TCP. Okay. So you need to do some checking before you do it. It should be pretty easy. Yeah, if it does not exist or something, you can easily handle this. So let's talk about how to send it first. It's pretty easy. To send this file, let's say we have this, what's the name of it? This file, right? We've opened this one. We have this file already in our hand. We have some digits inside this file. So how can we send it? We can just change the open one with the RB. So read bytes. So you can see we are reading it in the byte format. So this one can be sent via the socket. So it's like socket dot send this one. Just send this content, right? Just send content. So that's how we send it. You can see only the thing we need to change is here. So that we can send just a message like this to the server side, and the server can like save it into file. Just change this one to WB. Yeah, and as well, we need to do have a uploading log.txt. So you can initialize your server. Every time you run the server, you can like automatically create a new file like this, and with empty lines. Every time you have a new records, then you just open a file with the parameter A and write the stuff like this. Should be very easy. And yeah, so when we back to the this one, when we send it, we need to like name this task, the ID, right? Our ID and the timestamps and the file ID and data amount. We need to send it as well. So how can we send it? It's pretty easy. So when we back to the here, if we are using a dictionary, this one will be very easy. So let's just do this one. So it's the EDG. We just change this one, like action E. So it's not EDG, it's UED. UED. And the data is the file, right? So we can copy this one. I assume you can do this one in here. We have the data in here, and we can also contain some useful information in here. Let's say the username is user1, and the times m is something. Your data is this, something like this. So you can send a message like this. It will be easier for the server to handle it. So the server received the file, and it will be very easy to handle it. Yeah, the server side could say, okay. And if we need to have some data, then you can attach with it. Depends. So that's the like message format, I think. And for the EDG, we don't need to issue this one, right? So you just issue the EDG. We don't need to send it. And next one, tt and aed. Delete the data file. So just define a function. It will be pretty easy. Delete, define, delete file, and return something. Return true. File ID. So how to delete the file? I think we need to use OS or SYS, right? You can simply just search online, just remove a file. It's pretty easy. So here we create new one. Server side just want to check, is it the server side delete or client side delete? Delete the data file. Okay, so we need to manipulate as well in the server side. So we need to deletion log. We need to add something into the deletion log, and then yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay. So an example for that is the lt command in here. The lt result. It's like this. The lt lt1. So the action is like the lt, and I think username is useful, timestamp is useful, and the file ID, we need to include the file ID. Yeah, like this. Stamp. Would be like this. Result. Yep. You can see once we have this kind of protocol, it will be very easy to extend it. Just change the formats and change the content in the results and the request. So delete a file, right? So you can have a quick look. I can import the OS and return os.remove the, we need to view the file name first. File name equal to my ID. So you need to do the research by yourself in here. But I assume my ID is this one. But you may need to change the ID, right? You need to get a variable for this one. But I assume in here we just have this username. And this one is the file ID. So we remove the file name. That's how we do it. So that's the delete file. let's try to remove a file first. Let's remove which one? Remove this one. Delete file. This one equal to 1, and we list again and see the file is gone. So this one is like this. So in the server side, you have this one. And of course, you need to write a log. So just quick look how to write a log. Write, define, write, delete log, right? And just you can have some information in this side. So I'm not pretty sure what's the information there. Add device name, timestamp, file ID, and data amount. We just with open the file name, so you need to know the file name. Let me just so file name will equal to the edge device plus file ID. This one plus file ID. I think they have some dash on it, right? So let me just make a format string like this, and the file ID here .txt. It could be something like this, right? And then I think the dash is like this, and then we just write a log. We need to add a new line, right? So just with open file name, and we need to add something at the end, add file. So file to write. So you just need to write this kind of thing. Just do it by yourself. Message equal to something. Just combine this together. It should be very easy for you. Just put this thing in here. Something like this, but you need to have a double check. I'm not sure it's correct. Yeah, and that's it. Just write a log, and that's it. So in here, we have the server side. Do two things. Delete the file and write a log. And yeah, that's it. Anything else? And this is the EDG. Pretty good. Open, delete file, upload file. Let's see, upload file. This is the UED. Yep. So that's the three function, and the last one, AED. AED active edge device. No requirement for any commands. Okay, so this one will require the server side to check the log, right? So for every active device, it should be in the list of somewhere. So if they didn't upload the edge data, it will not be in the log. So I think maybe we need to maintain a log, active device log file. So we need to have this one. Every time we have a new user, we need to write a log. Right, so I guess you need to do this thing with the login function or just after the login function. Every time a new user log in, then we need to like write something on the log. And every time someone log out, we need to delete something from this log. So it will be very easy for this one. So what should we do with this one? So it's the AED command. AED. We still need to send the username to the server side. And the result could be, the data could be a list, like user 1, user 2, user 3, and etc. So if you are not sure like what will be this looks like, you can just simply scroll down at the bottom of the file, the specification, and have a look. What will be the AED looks like? It will return other active device lists like this, right? So it will return this kind of information. You just simply have a look. It's this one. So it could be like this kind of information. We just put it here, something like this. As you can see here, in the data, we have the name of it, in the log of it, and the IP address and port number, and the active date timestamps. So we don't need to do much for this function actually, but every time we just need to make sure every time the user log in, you need to write a log, right? So in the server side, just check the user log.txt. Like this. So in this function, you don't need to write a lot, but you may need to modify the login function. Every time the new user log in, you need to write a log, right? So this one is not pretty hard. Just do something after the login. Just write this information, write the user's name and their IP and port number and their timestamps into the log. And then every time the new user issues the AED command, then we check the log and delete this username. We deleted client 1 from the list, right? Because we want to send other active device, excepting this one, back to the client 1. So it'll be like this. Just write a pseudo code, So we've opened active user log.txt here link, and with the read permission, we don't need to delete, and just return the what's that? Return the file to as file. Yeah. Yeah, maybe you need to define the function here. So define get the user, and here you may need to have a username here for the issuing user, because you don't want to print this user, right? Active list equal to this one, and yeah, just to do remove the user, go to username. Could be like the active list will equal to active list like row for row in active list, row for row if username not in row. This could work, but it's not a good idea, because you may have some bug if you have some repeat on your username, but it could be work just for draft version. But I recommend you to change it. I just did it. We don't have enough space. Okay, so get the active user. Do the sequence number get reset every time the server gets shut down? Yes, I think so. It's better to reset everything. So when you turn off the server, it's better to delete everything that we don't need. Or every time you restart the server, you clear everything out. So make sure you don't have any error. Because sometimes when we try your client and server, we try to run like this, and suddenly your client or server crashed, then we need to restart it. But if you already have some log file, it may cause further bugs, right? So I recommend you to delete or clear everything before you run it or after your crash. Yeah, this is the log file. Yeah, and I think that's it. Maybe I can share this one to the GitHub file, copy as image. Save as, save as, save. Yeah, I'll upload this one to the GitHub link later. We do have some sample code here that may help. Like, but I think the first four functions quite easy. You can see for the EDG one, just a few lines that you completed. Just write some random integers into a txt file. I think the only confusing thing is about the parameters on the open function. You have a lot of parameters inside, right? So you can have a check for the online tutorial for the open function. What kind of parameters do we have inside the open function? So just like this, here, Python open function, you can see what kind of mode do we have. The RAWX and TB. Yeah, that's it. Is that okay? Any questions? I think it's long enough. And next week we can do some P2P stuff. How to send a file via UDP. I will demonstrate how to send a file via UDP just by using a very simple protocol. Yeah. And this week we have go through these four functions. We do have other functions, right? But I think I cannot show every function to you as this one is an individual assignment. I was trying to tell how to do it, but not tell you the code. I hope it's still useful. So I covered this one, this one, this one, and this one. You need to do the SCS by yourself. Yeah, just let me know if you have any trouble, so we can have a further discussion about that. And tomorrow we'll have the same session at the same time, so 2 to 4 p.m. Feel free to come and ask any question. But tomorrow I will not like demonstrate this part again. Just feel free to come if you have any trouble with this part or any question related to this assignment. Yeah, that's all good. I recommend to do it right now. So if you have any trouble, just come back here tomorrow and ask me. Okay, I will stop sharing. Feel free to share your screen if you have any trouble.